the methods of data collection. So, the first one we have here surveys and questionnaires. Number 2, interviews. The third one is observations. The fourth is about experiments. And the last one is about case studies. So, these are the 5 methods of data collection. So, let us first discuss surveys and questionnaires. So surveys and questionnaires. Surveys involve asking individuals a set of predetermined questions, often in written form, to gather information about their opinions, behaviors, or characteristics. Now, this is applied in social sciences, market research, and public opinion polls. The advantage of this method is this is cost effective and can reach a large audience, and it has a standardized format. The challenge for this one is response bias and limited depth of information because it already has predetermined questions. So this is surveys and questionnaires. For the second method, which is interviews, interviews involve direct interaction between a researcher and a participant where questions are asked and responses are recorded. So the application for this one is this is common in qualitative research, case studies, and in-depth investigation. The advantage of this one is it allows for in-depth exploration, flexibility in questioning, and clarification of responses. The only challenge for this one is this is so time consuming and potential for interviewer bias. So those are the application, advantage, and challenge for this method. Now let us proceed with the third method, which is about observations. Researchers directly observe and record behavior, events, or phenomena without direct interaction with the participants. And this is used in naturalistic studies, ethnography, and behavioral research. And the advantage for this one, this provides first-hand information and minimizes response bias. The only challenge for this one is observer bias, limited insight into underlying motivations. So these are the application, advantage, and the challenge of this method, which is about observation. The fourth method that we have here is about experiments. Researchers manipulate variables to observe the effect on the outcome. Controlled conditions help establish cause and effect relationships. This is common in natural sciences, psychology, and medicine. They carry experiments most of the time because it allows for causal inference and high internal validity. The only challenge for this one is artificial settings may limit generalizability and ethical concerns. So those are the application, advantages, and challenge for this type of method in data collection. The fifth method for data collection we have here is about case studies. In-depth examination of a single case or a small number of cases to gain insights into complex phenomena. This is common in psychology, medicine, and social sciences. This is rich. The advantage for this one, for this type of method, is this is rich, detailed information suitable for complex or unique cases. The only challenge is that limited generalizability and potential for research bias. So this is what the fifth method of data collection is like. Let us now have another activity. For each scenario provided, identify the most suitable data collection method to be used. So we have here A school principal wants to understand the satisfaction level of parents regarding the new school meal plan. The principal sends a series of carefully structured questions to a sample of parents via an online platform, ensuring responses can be collected efficiently. Now, this scenario, we can use the survey method for data collection because the principal uses a structured questionnaire to gather responses from parents. For scenario number 2, we have here a wildlife researcher is studying the behavior of a specific bird species. They spend several months in a forest, quietly observing the birds' feeding patterns, nesting behaviors, and the interactions with other species without interfering. For scenario number 2, we can say that the method for data collection is observation method. So the researcher collects data by directly observing the bird's natural behaviors without interference. Nag-observe lang si researcher. That is why the method is the observation method. For scenario number 3, we have here a tech company wants to improve its new smartphone's user interface. They give the device to a group of users who are asked to perform specific tasks while their interactions, challenges, and the time taken are recorded. So for item number 3, we are using the method experiment method. The company collects data by monitoring how users interact with the device under specific conditions. So that is item number 3. For scenario number 4, we have here a health organization is investigating the prevalence of a particular disease in a rural area. They visit households in the community, collect information about symptoms, medical histories, and living conditions through in-person interactions. So for this type of scenario, we need to use the interview method because the health organization collects data by visiting households and conducting direct face-to-face interviews so that they can know the symptoms, the medical histories, the living conditions of the community. For scenario number 5, we have here a university researcher is investigating how a small rural community has successfully implemented sustainable farming practices. Over the course of a year, the researcher immerses themselves in the community, collecting detailed information through interviews with farmers, observations of farming techniques, analysis of historical records, and reviews of local policies. The researcher focuses on the unique aspects of this community's approach, aiming to understand the factors behind its success and its potential applicability to other regions. This scenario describes the case study method, which involves an in-depth and detailed explanation or examination of a specific instance, individual, group, or organization to explore its unique characteristics and broader implications. Let us now proceed. Since we are done with the methods of data collection, let us now proceed to sampling technique. Sampling technique is the process of selecting a subset of individuals or elements from a large population for study. So we have here the common sampling techniques. The first one, we have the simple random sampling, the stratified sampling, and the third one is the systematic sampling. Let us first discuss simple random sampling. So the first common sampling technique is simple random sampling. So every individual in the population has an equal chance of being selected. Let me show you this, how simple random sampling is done by having an example. So for example, as a teacher, you want to conduct a survey to gather opinions from students in your school about the introduction of a new technology club. The total student population in the school is 500. To ensure fairness, you assign each student a unique number from 1 to 500. Using a random number generator, you select 50 students. These selected students are then given the survey to share their thoughts and interest in the new club. So this scenario illustrates the simple random sampling because first, there is an equal opportunity. Every student in the school has an equal chance of being selected for the survey. Second, it is in random selection. A random number generator is used to show or to choose the participants, ensuring no bias in the selection process. And the third one, the final one, is that there is representative sample. By randomly selecting 50 students, the results are more likely to reflect the overall opinions of the school population. So these are the steps in how to do simple random sampling. Step 1, identify the population. Step number 2, assign a number to each individual. Step number 3, determine the sample size. Number 4, use a random selection method. Number 5, select the chosen individuals. And number 6, invite the selected individuals to participate. So for number 1, identify the population. Just like our example, the population is 500. Number 2, assign a number to each individual. So from our population that is 500, each one of those students has a unique numbers from 1 to 500. Number 3, determine the sample size. It could be, kung gusto lang ka nga, imong sample size is 50, that's okay. If you want 100, that's also okay. But you need to determine how much or how many is your sample size, not exceeding the population. Number 4, use a random selection method. Sa ato example before, we have used the random number generator, or what they said, you can just put the numbers in a hat and select them. Select numbers, pick numbers from the hat according to your sample size. Number 5, select the chosen individuals. Those numbers that are being selected, you are going to choose those individuals, and you are going to, number 6, invite the selected individuals to participate for your survey or your research for your data collection process. The next one we have here, the stratified sampling. Dividing the population into subgroups or strata and then randomly sampling from each subgroup. Let us have an example to further understand stratified sampling. Now, for the example of stratified sampling we have here, you are a researcher studying the participation of junior high school students in extracurricular activities. The school has 800 students distributed across 4 grade levels: grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10. To ensure your sample is representative of the entire school, you divide the student population in 4 strata based on their grade levels. The number of students in each grade is as follows. For grade 7, you have 200 students. For grade 8, you have 250 students. Grade 9, 150 students. And for grade 10, you have 200 students. You decide to sample 10% of students from each grade. Using random sampling within each grade, you select 20 students from grade 7, 25 students from grade 8, 15 students from grade 9, 20 students from grade 10. These 80 students are then surveyed about their participation in extracurricular activities. So this scenario illustrates the stratified sampling because it presents three of the very important parts in using stratified sampling. First, the strata is defined. The student population is divided into subgroups or strata based on grade levels. So that's the strata for this scenario. The second one is that there is proportional sampling. The sample size from each grade is proportional to each size in the population because you have decided to sample 10% of students from each grade only. That is why it is proportional. The third one is that there is random selection within strata. Students are randomly selected within each grade, ensuring representation and minimizing bias. Stratified sampling ensures that all subgroups or grades are appropriately represented in the sample, making the results more generalizable to the entire school. So that is stratified sampling. So these are the steps in stratified sampling. First, identify the population. So the population in our scenario before is that all students in the high school has a total of 800 population. Step 2, define strata. So you have divided the population into strata based on characteristics of interest. In our example, the strata are the different grade levels. The grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10. For step number 3, you need to determine the sample size. So you are to decide on the overall sample size you want and the proportion of the sample from each stratum. Let's say you want a total sample size of 100 students with the goal of representing each grade level proportionally. So you need to give sample size allocation. So to make it fair, to reach the sample size of 100 students, for grade 7, you are to select 25 students. For grade 8, also another 25. For grade 9, another 25 students. And for grade 10, another 25 students. So, to making a total of 100 students for your sample size. Step number 4, randomly select within strata. So you are going to use random sampling within each stratum to select the specified number of students. You can use methods like random number generators or random sampling technique. So if you are using a random number generator, generate 25 random numbers for each grade level. For step 5, you are to select. The third common sampling technique is systematic sampling. So selecting every nth individual from the population after a random start. So let us have an example to further understand what is systematic sampling. For For the example of systematic sampling we have here, imagine you are conducting a survey to gather feedback from customers at a popular coffee shop. The coffee shop serves a total of 300 customers on a typical day, and you want to systematically survey a representative sample. You decide to select every 6 customer who enters the coffee shop during a 4-hour period. The first customer is chosen randomly, and then you select every 6th customer who walks in after that. In this way, you collect feedback from 50 customers throughout the day. So this scenario illustrates systematic sampling because first, it has a fixed interval selection. Every 6th customer is chosen following a regular interval after the first randomly selected individual. Second, it has a simple process. The method ensures a quick and consistent way to select participants while still aiming for representativeness. And the third one, there is an ease of implementation. It simplifies the sampling process by using a fixed pattern, reducing the need for complex random selection. Systematic sampling is useful in situations where you want a simple, organized way to sample participants and when the population is ordered in some way. So this is how you do systematic sampling. So let us now have the steps in systematic sampling. First, you need to identify the population. The population is all the customers present in the shopping mall or coffee shop during a specified time. And step 2, determine the sample size. So decide on the overall sample size you want. Let's say you want to survey 50 customers only. So that is your sample size. For step number 3, you have here calculate the sampling interval or K. So you have here the formula K is equal to total population divided by the sample size. For example, the total population is 500 and you only need or you only want a sample size of 50. So 500 divided by 50, that's 10. In this case, every 10 customers will be surveyed. For step number 4, there is a random start. So choose a random starting point where the first individuals. For example, randomly select the third customer as your starting point. And the fifth one is you are to select the chosen individuals. So you are to survey every 10th customer from the randomly chosen starting point until you reach the desired sample size. Starting from the third customer, survey the 13th, 23rd, 33rd, and so on until you've surveyed 50 customers. So this is how systematic sampling is done. Let us now have activity number 3. For each scenario, choose the appropriate sampling technique to be employed. So we have here, number 1, you are conducting a survey on a customer satisfaction at a large bookstore with a total of 1,000 customers. To ensure that the survey results are unbiased, you randomly select 100 customers from the store's customer database. You do this by picking customer IDs without any specific grouping or ordering. These customers are then asked to complete a survey about their shopping experience. So for this scenario, this demonstrates simple random sampling because in this scenario, it is randomly selecting customers without any particular structure or categorization. So this is simple random sampling. Let's have activity number 3, item number 2. A university is studying the academic success of students across different disciplines. The total student population is 2,000, and the university wants to ensure that each department is properly represented in the study. The students are grouped by their major, like business, engineering, arts, and etc. And the university decides to select a proportionate number of students from each department to survey about their academic performance. So for this scenario, this showcases stratified sampling because the students are divided into groups or by major, and a proportionate sample is drawn from each group. Let us now have scenario number 3. You are conducting a survey about commuting habits in a city with a population of 5,000 residents. To ensure a good representation of the community, you decide to select every 50th person from the city's registered resident list. Starting from a random point in the list, you select every 50th name to survey about their daily commuting patterns. So for this scenario, this illustrates systematic sampling. Systematic sampling because the survey or the residents are selected using a fixed interval every 50th person from a list. So this is systematic sampling. For scenario number 4, we have here, you are a researcher studying the nutritional habits of high school students. The school has 1,200 students across 4 grade levels, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. To make sure each grade level is represented fairly, you divide the students by their grade and then randomly select 25 students from each grade level to complete a detailed survey about their eating habits. So for scenario number 4, this uses stratified sampling because the student population is divided by grade level and a sample is taken from each group, meaning there is a strata and a sample size is taken from each stratum. For the final scenario for our activity 3, we have here a clothing store wants to survey its customers about the new product line. The store sees 500 customers in one day. You decide to randomly choose every 10th customer that enters the store, starting with the first customer of the day, and invite them to participate in the survey. This ensures a consistent and organized sample of shoppers for your study. Now, this scenario represents systematic sampling because every 10 customer is selected for the survey in a consistent pattern. So that is why this is systematic sampling. So now I have here some takeaways that you may need to ponder that is about our topic. So collecting data is like gathering puzzle pieces. Each piece, no matter how small, helps us see the bigger picture. It's not just about numbers, it's about creating a story that makes sense. So data collection isn't just about collecting numbers. It's about creating a narrative, a story that helps us understand the world around us. And just like collecting data, we also have sampling. Sampling is like tasting a spoonful from a well-stirred soup. When done right, that small bite represents the rich flavor of the whole. Choose your spoonful wisely, and your understanding of the entire dish will be both accurate and satisfying. So just like a poorly stirred soup can give you an inaccurate taste, a biased sample can lead to misleading conclusions about the whole population. But if you choose your spoonful wisely, you can get a delicious, satisfying taste of the whole pot. So that is our takeaways for the lesson that we have for today. So let us now have an activity for you to practice. You may pause the video so you can read the scenarios or the given statements. So that ends our lesson for today for this session. See you on our next meeting.